We had no notice.
And all of a sudden there's a pounding on the door.
The next door neighbor screamed, "You and Tom get out now." And I looked up and there was a wall of fire right at the end of our street.
Out with big arms. And it was like a great big living organism.
It was a Sunday afternoon and I went outside my patio to watch a baseball game. I was home alone that day and doing my usual Sunday thing of laundry.
We had friends over.
And we were going to go to Pete's. And I said, I don't want to. Let's just have taco tree.
And I was still in my nightgown and laying on the bed doing my crossword puzzle.
So Skip went down to Taco Tree to get whatever we were going to have.
I had sheets hanging on the line and I had just been outside like 10 minutes earlier and thought, oh, it's really windy, but I didn't smell smoke or anything.
I was doing something out in my garage and I smelled smoke.
When he left, it was just like all of a sudden I smelled smoke.
And I smelled smoke about 2 o'clock, a little bit after. And I looked and I saw a big amount of smoke.
And I walked out of the garage and I looked over there and the field was on fire. So I took my camera and I walked over there, and this was the first picture I took. And this picture looked like the fires that had started before.
And I thought, again, the field has been on fire before.
About 4 or 5 burned out there, and they always got them out.
And it was a windy day, and the first thought was, what idiot is burning leaves?
So I figured they would get it, and it'd be taken care of. So I went back to the house and went to continue what I was working on.
And I came and looked out. We have corner windows, and I looked out and I saw smoke over there, and I thought, what the heck?
And I went in and I mentioned it to my husband, who had been sick. And I went back out and I saw more smoke, so I called my neighbor at the end of the street, and I called 911, who told me they were already on it.
When I went to Taco Tree, I saw the smoke. I drove down, and it was still far out in the field. I saw the fire truck coming, and I said, well, they should get a handle on it real quick. But apparently they didn't start fighting the fire when they arrived. They had to wait for the fire chief to show up.
And pretty soon, it came up over that hill, and those trees that used to stand and be so went like that. And I knew we were in trouble.
Had my tacos come back out. I reached the signal, and here's fire in behind 84 lumber. And I says, oh crap, we're in trouble.
And all of a sudden I saw ash like snow outside the garage door. And I walked out there and I looked over there, and that fire was coming.
So I gathered the dogs, threw them in the van, turned it on, put the cat in the van, and then it just kept coming closer, and I'm thinking, where's Skip, where's Skip, where's Skip? and we had one cell phone, and of course I had it. And pretty soon he comes in, and he's back from Taco Tree, and he grabbed the hoses.
We had no notice. Our next door neighbor came, yelled at Delta that we better get out, and she noticed the fire down there at the end.
It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I looked up, and it was black, like if in the Midwest it was getting ready to storm. It didn't make sense. This is August. So I stepped out on the porch in my sock feet, and the next door neighbor screamed, "You and Tom get out now." And I looked up, and there was a wall of fire right at the end of our street.
And all of a sudden there's a pounding on the door, and it was my next door neighbor, and he was just yelling, "You got to get out of here."
And I screamed at Tom. I says, "Tom, get the hell out of here now." And I started to go get in his car, and I thought, no, I better get in my car because it's full of gas, and it's in the garage, and that would just fuel everything. So I jumped in my car.
So I have 2 cats. I grabbed, well, actually Maureen came by and he was laying on the back patio, so she threw him in my van, just loose, no box or anything. My other one was hiding, so I left him behind, and I grabbed a shirt and my fanny pack, and I left the house.
So the sheriff come up.
Just peeling and hollering over his microphone, "Get the hell out of here, get the hell out of here."
And said on the loudspeaker, "Evacuate, mandatory." Sorry. 3 years, it's still hard. So Skip says, "Go, go, go."
I tried to get the cat fought me, he won. I couldn't get him. My dog, who was a loving dog, bit me as I picked her up, but I said, "You're going anyway, whether you like to or not."
Yeah. So I got in the van. Go, go. You're coming, you're coming. I'm still mad at him because he didn't come right away.
And I told Barbara, "You got the animals already loaded up. You go. I'll stay for as long as I can."
And I got about here, and it was just like Janita said. Everything was so quiet. The noisiest thing was of that fire. There was noise from the fire, and then the bombers were, there was a bomber. And it dropped its load right on top of the van.
I saw Barbara leave. I turned around and I said, "Oh crap, I'm in the wrong place." And here it's coming down the back fence line, and I see the fire starting on
This fence.
Gary's house, which is the new house on South Park Place, down next to the field. And I see his house catch on fire, and it was like a great big living organism. The fire would just reach out with big arms and grab whatever. Basically, it went from the house to a tree, to a tree to a house, to a house to a house to a tree. And I watched it come within 5 minutes. It went from the field to the house here on the corner across Parkway. And I turned both hoses, because I'm hosing down everything with 2 hoses. I had the one Barbara was using, I was using one. And I turned it next door onto their deck, and it was like spraying gasoline on the fire, because the more water that went on it, the faster it burned.
Oh, jeez.
I have a daughter with MS that's in a wheelchair, so I put her in another lightweight one, took her up the street and locked it and came back. And by this time my husband is trying to put the fire out with a hose, and because he'd had strokes, he wasn't listening to me. I couldn't make him listen.
I heard the windows explode out from the neighbor's house, and I said, "Dang, this is like pissing in the wind." I dropped both hoses. I walked through the back of the house, through the slider, closed the corner windows, closed the kitchen window, walked out through the garage door.
Left the TV on.
Left the TV on.
You knew you were going to be right back.
And I was getting the car out because I knew I had to get the car out to get everybody else. So when I was backing out, my patio was on fire because we had it covered. And a neighbor from across the street yelled and said, "Is everyone out of there?" And I said, "No, I can't make my husband get out." So she called her husband, who came and made him get out and pushed him into the car.
I drive down the street, and everything on Parkside, South Park, was all ablaze. The house, 2 houses down here in the corner, they were in a blaze. Got to here to Creekside, everything was burning on Creekside, and there was 1 fire truck.
And I went back up the street to the end of Parkway, and I can remember just before I left, I looked up, and it reminded me of just a wall of fire. That's all I'll always remember, just a wall of fire, and it went like that. I mean, I just saw it go. Before, this was when I was trying to get us out, but I saw that go up like that.
And I looked down at Connie's house. Her 2 young daughters were in the front yard holding the dog and holding a hose. And behind her house was the blazes 100 feet in the air. But one thing I remembered, Connie never put her car in the garage, ever, since I've been living there. So I figured she wasn't home, so I drove out of my driveway and pulled down. I pulled up by the kids there, and I said, "Where's your mom?" And they said, "She's at the store." I said, "Get in my car right now." They knew who I was, so, and then they brought the dog and they jumped in the car, and I drove out here, and I turned, and I'm going down towards Dry Creek, and Connie come around the corner, fast as hell, speeding. I honked and waved. She didn't see me. She kept going. So I pulled out on Dry Creek, and I pulled across there where it looked to be safe, and I told the girls, "You watch the animals and stay right here." I couldn't turn around and drive back because of the traffic, so I ran back to the street, and she was going into the house to look for the kids. And I said, "Connie," and the thing's on fire already. I said, "I got your kids. Get out of here. I'll find you later. They're with me." Okay. So I got out, but I didn't realize she went up here to get her mother. Because when she didn't come out right away, but as long as the kids were with me, they were safe.
Some guy came by, and I just asked him if he could go to the house and see if he could get into the house and open the slider to let my other cat out, because at that time the big tree in front of my house I could see and it was on fire. And so he did. They broke the front window and opened up the slider.
I kept trying to see Tom and make sure that he got the heck out of there, because I didn't know what he was going to do.
Then a big wall of flame was coming in the easement area between our houses and the Dry Creek houses, and this big wall of flame and lots of smoke. And I thought, well, I better get the hell out of here. But that wasn't such a good idea to stay and help.
The scariest thing was Connie would have went into her house looking for those 2 little girls.
Oh, yeah.
I know she was. And if I didn't go back there, and if I didn't
Hadn't looked down
come
there.
back to get her or look down there, I'm sure those kids wouldn't get out. Because when I was leaving, it was last minute. The fire was up against the houses there.
In my mind, even though I saw it go that way, I thought it was following me down that way. You know, I knew it was going that way, but
But I can remember as I went down the street, and it truly was a wall of fire. I looked back toward Janita's and Jack's place. When I came out, when I left, we truly had a wall of fire behind us. It's when the Joneses' house went, and it got our fence, like that back corner, and it was starting to jump already over to the park. And so it was going up, you know, the line of that, you know, behind that house over there. And so I'm, it's like, I can't even tell you what a feeling of devastation, like you said, about being in a war.
As I went down the street, those were on fire. Janita's was on fire. The whole Creekside was on fire. And it was just like, oh God.
and what I remember is everyone on that street being so polite. there were a lot of cars trying to get out. There's only one way out. And even when we got to Parkway, there were a lot of cars trying to come out and only one way that way. And everyone was just letting someone go in front of them.
And like you said, nobody was panicking. Even when we were driving out, and it was scary.
But people were letting people out. There was nobody running around going, ah, screaming and yelling or anything. It was very calm.
When I got to 49, the police were out there, and they're trying to direct me off toward Grass Valley, and I wasn't about to go, so I drove around him. It's like, screw, I'm going. I know the back way to get to to Newcastle,
Right.
and I'm going to my daughter's house.
Thoughts were, Delta and I are alive and well and safe. We're out of it, and I was concerned. We had a cat. We still have her.
Excuse me, like heck, and ended up at Rayleigh's, where several other people ended up. And we just sat there, and we could see the black smoke. We could see it go, and you knew it was another house.
So I drove back on a dirt road back there, and I parked, and I got out, and I waited till all the smoke and stuff kind of moved on. Then I walked back to my house.
It was dark before they would let anyone back in. Because I said, I'm going. We wanted to go.
And then we heard on the news that night at 10 that they were letting people back in. You couldn't drive down 49, so we kind of took back roads and stuff.
And we had to walk from Dutch Brothers, had just gone in. We parked down there.
And yeah, we parked down in the parking lot down at the gas station and walked up.
And I just knew the house would still be there.
You know, I didn't know what I was going to find.
And we walked all the way in.
We found out, which houses burned, which ones didn't.
It was like a war zone. It's what I would have imagined a war zone would look like. I've never been in one. I hope to God I never am. But it is what it exactly looked like, because there was gas still spewing because they hadn't gotten all the gas pipes off yet.
Like Barbara said, a war zone. Because there was, gas going off. There was canisters still exploding. There was still lots of things happening.
And I rounded that turn up there, and I saw the darn house was gone. And I said, it's just overwhelming. You think it's only stuff, but by golly, it's your stuff.
And it was, my house was okay. The houses was gone next to me, and Janita's house was gone.
On my street, there were just two houses that burnt, mine and the one next door.
My daughter was working at Safeway, and I called her on the cell phone. And she says, I see all the smoke, and I hear all the fire engine. What's going on? I said, well, we had a big fire over here. And she said, how's the house? I said, we don't have a house. She said, what do you mean? I said, it's not there. It's burned right. She says, you're kidding me, Dad. Burned right to the ground.
It was unbelievable, because the park still stood. All of this equipment still stood. And I thought, how could that still stand? It was so hot, because you could feel the heat from it when I was leaving. You could feel it, and it was still hot when we walked back in.
It left my palm trees.
But left your palm trees.
I cried. I was devastated. I don't see, when I left, I didn't know whether we had a house either, but I knew the Janitas and Jacks and all of that. I knew it was gone. And I didn't know whether next door or what had happened. And so anyway, Tom comes back. I'm too upset to even come back. And Tom comes over, and he comes back and says, Sophie's okay.
I hear the cat meowing from under the back deck, and she was just fine.
My other cat, he was hiding, so he was fine.
There was a friend of my daughter's called me and said, we have a crew that's going to sift at your house. You can come or not come. And I said, oh no, I want to come. So I got a caregiver to stay, and I came, and I would show them where I thought things were. And that was the other strange thing. Kept looking at straight down where I knew things should be, but what I realized later was, as we were looking, because the fire came so fast like this, everything was over this way. It was, 10 feet from where I thought it should be, if it was on the wall.
Sifting through, the only thing I can say is that I needed to do it. I think we needed to do it. The two of us and our kids and friends and family, all came and we all sifted through there, and it sounds
very
silly.
quiet that day.
It was extremely quiet, and it was almost, and I'm not degrading it, but it was almost like a party.
We sifted through. We didn't find anything.
They took their metal saw and cut off the hinges and pried it open, and everything that was in that safe was just total ashes.
I figured everything in there was gone because the thing was a big bubble of metal, and so I took it to the safe shop and they opened it up, and guess what? Everything in there was okay.
I found one little jewelry case that I had made as a child, and for some reason that didn't break or burn. It's smoke damaged, but it had a necklace and 2 earrings in it that was actually made out of my grandmother's ring. So I have those. I haven't done anything with them.
But I have, this antique truck that happened to be in the shop getting a new chrome steering wheel and electrical work done, and it was supposed to be done on Friday and it wasn't finished. I was a little upset. I wanted the truck back, but I don't drive it a lot. I still don't drive it a lot. So it got saved because it was in the shop, and then of course my car I drove out. But I lost everything else.
And then looking through, we found things that you thought, well, why is that still there?
So
This is my old house. My contractor gave that to me after he went through it. He said, this is your house.
Sometimes I think I should have kept, or we should have kept a little more, but I really didn't want to at the time. And okay, that thing can go off now. I was amazed at how many people came up the neighborhood, up the street, after it was, we were all rebuilding and stuff, and even still sifting, that came and brought water, that left dog food. There were people that found out who had dogs.
And people were so good. They were just so good.
Everybody come together. Everybody wanted to help.
Yeah. Home Depot, all the rakes and the shovels and the wagons. And, Dutch Brothers.
So I got a 4-bedroom house right away in Loomis. And I said, well, what can I pay you rent? He said, no, you don't have to pay anything.
Christian Valley people come from there to just hear.
So my insurance company called me and asked me where I was at. I told them, and so they wanted their number. So I gave them their number. They called them. They gave them $3,000 deposit and told them that $1,600 they would pay the rent until I moved back into my house. And for being nice, they didn't ask to rent it to me. They told me I could stay there for nothing.
The first drop was not over at the field where it should have been. It was over here beyond the park.
Oh, man.
On that little corridor strip in back of the park. The second drop, again, should have been, in this area here, on that side of Parkway, and they dropped it on the street. Our Ben can attest that it.
Well, but in their defense,
that it might
is
be hard
to gauge.
And the wind was blowing.
And the wind was blowing. But it should have been. But their reasoning was they didn't want it. It's hard to get off houses.
As I was driving out, an airplane came in, got low, started dropping, and he dropped fire retardant on our shed and our son-in-law's boat and our house and our front yard, and probably what saved our house from getting burned down
probably the house across the street too.
And some of it got over there, do you think?
Yeah, because there's
Across the
3
street?
houses there didn't get burned either.
Yeah. But at that point, I never saw a fire truck.
Yeah, no. That little white one came, I was sitting down there for a good hour after it, and the little white one came and went down Creekside and sat down by Connie's place. But there was like 2 guys on that. I guess the big one had been up in Grass Valley earlier that day. There was a fire up there. And
a lot of them had
then,
I didn't see the fire people till after the fire was done, not coming there or anything.
yeah.
They were spread very thin.
There was not one single fire truck anywhere along the route. I went down 49. There were 2 fire trucks spraying water on Harley Davidson, which was already on the ground. And there's 2 trucks there. I said, why aren't one of you trucks up in our area?
It's kind of strange to me that their airplanes could be here dropping fire
Yes.
retardant on the various places in and around the fire at least, and no fire trucks that I could see anywhere.
Yeah. It was a good 45 minutes, and all of a sudden around the corner comes a good 5 huge, I guess they were from San Francisco and Sacramento, and they stopped at the bottom of Parkway to decide where they were going to go, because nobody had given them orders. Were they coming up into this neighborhood? Were they going back to Saddleback, Christian Valley? And I was just sitting there going, why are they making this decision? You know, a couple of them should be going up this street. But there was a good, like, 5 minutes of them just talking about, well, where should we go here?
My perspective from the fire department, I knew all stories, but I just was really, really grateful that they were willing to come out, because they've got families, and they were out there. They did the best they could.
It was, somebody had mentioned before, the perfect storm. The wind, the heat, everything was just right for that to happen.
The CYA meeting is what I called it, right after the fire. And here's all the bigwigs.
3 days after.
They get up in their, uniforms and all that, and kept patting themselves on the back and saying, "What a good job I did."
Oh, jeez.
You didn't do a good job. You lost 63 homes.
But we were out from that last week in August until like the second week in November.
We had severe smoke damage. We were several months getting it all repaired inside and renovated.
They had to take everything out of my house and redo it, the insulation, the carpet, everything had to be moved out and re-cleaned up and stuff. And then, so it was 5 weeks.
The smoke damage was all taken care of and all cured, and so we're happy with our house now.
But it was, just horrible to see my neighbors who had lost their houses and stuff have to go through all that.
And my heart just broke for all you guys. It's because you can't replace a lifetime of memories, especially the pictures and things. And I still feel very, very badly because you all did lose your homes.
They were my grandmother's quilts, that she's not even alive, of course, anymore. Patterns, all of my kids' things,
All the pictures.
all the pictures. The pictures were the hardest things, I think. Yeah.
Pictures back to the
Tin pictures.
late 1800s.
And none of the rest of the family has those things. Those are the hard things.
The old tin type pictures.
But they're still up here. They can't until that other part sets in.
I'm extremely lucky that we didn't lose possessions like you folks did, pictures and family paintings and photographs and things like that.
And I'm very happy with the house and the yard and everything that.
And most of the people have stayed here. It's really nice because I was really worried about people moving away, and for the majority, I think most of us have stayed. So
It's from the corner.
it's absolutely beautiful.
We love it.
Yeah.
We do love it.
And the good thing is that I was in the process of remodeling and making everything ADA at the time. And so I knew exactly what I needed to do like that. So everything in our house is made for wheelchairs. The halls, the doorways, the bathrooms. So that part is, really good.
First time we ever, in our whole 46 years of marriage tomorrow, ever
Happy
had
anniversary.
all new furniture. In our whole life, we have never, ever had all new furniture, and we had not much choice.
But I owned the house, I think at that time, 25 years or more, and I ended up redesigning the house, I got a 3.5 car garage now, a shop for my truck and everything, beautiful. I wouldn't want to go through it again.
I wouldn't want to go through it again either, but having the house is nice. The only thing, no one died here, but it really did shorten people's lives. I do believe that.
Yes.
My husband passed away. After that, he had a major stroke 2 months later, because he was never the same. He never made another decision from the day we left here, not one. It didn't matter what I asked him what we were going to do. He was just passive. It just shortened people's lives. And my daughter, who has MS, got much worse. That's just, I know no one died during the fire, but really we did lose people. Yeah.